The rain never really stops in our town. It just takes breaks. Tonight was not one of those breaks. Rain hammered against the windows, sounding like 100 tiny fists trying to get in. It streamed down the streets, turning the asphalt into a black, shivering mirror. The streetlights cast long, watery glows that wobbled and danced, making the shadows look like they were alive. Our town has always felt a little off. The buildings are old, hunched over like tired giants. The alleys are dark and narrow, filled with secrets you don't want to know. It's the kind of place where you always feel like someone is watching you, even when the streets are completely empty. And on a night like this, the feeling was 1,000 times worse. A cold finger tracing a path down your spine. This town holds its ghosts close, and its biggest ghost was WKRD. The old radio station sat at the edge of town, a lonely brick building with a tall skeletal antenna reaching for the stormy sky. It had been silent for 5 years. 5 long, quiet years. Before that, it was the town's heartbeat. Everyone listened to Daniel Cross and his late-night show, Whispers in the Dark. He had a voice like smooth, dark velvet, a voice that could make you believe anything. He told stories about the town, secrets nobody else dared to speak. He talked about strange lights in the sky and odd noises coming from the old sewer system. People loved him. They were addicted to his spooky tales. Then came the night he disappeared. It was a night just like this one, with rain lashing down and thunder rattling the windows of every house in town. Daniel was live on the air, his voice crackling through the speakers. He was in the middle of a story, something about a discovery he'd made, something hidden deep beneath the city streets. He sounded excited, but also scared. His voice began to shake. He stammered. Then there was a strange sound, a sort of wet, scraping noise, a choked gasp, and then nothing, just static. Daniel Cross was gone, vanished from his locked broadcast booth. The station went dark the next day, and it had been locked up tight ever since. The mystery was a wound that never healed in our town. People whispered theories in diners and barbershops. Some said he just ran away, tired of the small-town life. Others had darker ideas. They said he found something he wasn't supposed to find, and that something found him first. The police searched for weeks, but they found nothing. No clues, no signs of a struggle, nothing to explain how a man could simply evaporate from a sealed room. The station became a local legend, a haunted place kids would dare each other to approach. But nobody ever went inside. The silence from WKRD was louder than any broadcast had ever been, a constant reminder of the man who spoke into the darkness and was swallowed by it. Detective Marla Griggs sat in her small apartment, listening to the storm rage outside. The case file for Daniel Cross was spread across her coffee table, the pages worn and soft from 5 years of her thumbing through them. She had been a rookie when Daniel disappeared, and the case had been her first real failure. It haunted her more than any ghost. The official report said unexplained disappearance, but for Marla, unexplained was not an answer. It was a challenge. She could still hear the recording of that final broadcast in her mind, the fear in Daniel's voice, the strange, awful sound before the static took over. It was a puzzle with a missing piece, and it drove her crazy. Every year, on the anniversary of his disappearance, she would pull out the file. She would read the witness statements and study the station blueprints, hoping to see something she had missed. Her colleagues told her to let it go. "It's a cold case, Marla," her captain had said just last week. A dead end. But she couldn't. It felt personal. Daniel Cross had been a voice of comfort for the whole town, a strange and spooky kind of comfort, but comfort nonetheless. He made the town's weirdness feel special, not just scary. Marla felt like she owed it to him and to the town to find out what really happened that night. She felt the pull of the mystery deep in her bones. Tonight was the 5th anniversary. Marla was about to close the file and try to get some sleep when it happened. She had an old radio on her shelf, a vintage model she kept for decoration. Suddenly, it crackled to life. A hiss of static filled the room, and then a voice, a familiar voice. "Is anyone out there?" it whispered, the sound weak and distorted. "Can anyone hear me?" Marla froze, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. It was impossible. It couldn't be, but she knew that voice better than her own. It was Daniel Cross. He was broadcasting again, on the dead airwaves of WKRD. She scrambled for the radio, turning the dial. It was coming from the old WKRD frequency, a frequency that should have been silent. Daniel's voice continued, filled with a strange echoing quality. "They don't want you to know," he whispered. "They don't want you to look down below." Goosebumps erupted on Marla's arms. This was it. This was the missing piece. She didn't know how and she didn't know why, but Daniel Cross was back on the air. Grabbing her raincoat and her flashlight, she didn't hesitate. She had to go to the station. She had to see for herself. She ran out of her apartment and into the roaring black heart of the storm. The drive to the radio station was a battle against the storm. Wind rocked Marla's car, and rain fell in blinding sheets, making the world outside her windshield a blurry nightmare. The wipers fought a losing war against the downpour. Tree branches, heavy with water, clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers. Every flash of lightning lit up the old, forgotten road, revealing the skeletal antenna of WKRD getting closer and closer. The radio in her car was tuned to the station, and Daniel's voice was still there, a ghostly monologue weaving in and out of the static. He spoke of tunnels and whispers, of things that slept beneath the town's foundations. The words made no sense, but they filled the car with an icy dread. When she finally pulled up to the station, it looked even more menacing up close. The brick was dark with rain, and the windows were like vacant eyes staring out into the storm. The front gate was chained and padlocked, just as it had been for 5 years. But Marla knew another way in. A side door with a weak lock she'd found during the initial investigation. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness as she made her way around the building, her feet sinking into the muddy ground. The wind howled around the corners of the building, sounding almost like a scream. With a click and a shove, the old door creaked open, revealing a hallway plunged in absolute darkness. Stepping inside felt like stepping into a tomb. The air was cold and musty, thick with the smell of dust and decay. Marla's flashlight beam danced over dusty equipment and cobweb-draped furniture. Everything was exactly as the police had left it 5 years ago. She followed the hallway toward the broadcast studio, her heart thudding with a mixture of fear and excitement. As she got closer, she saw it. A faint red light was glowing from under the studio door. The on-air light. It was impossible. The station had no power. The main breaker had been shut off years ago. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. She pushed the door open and stopped dead in her tracks. The broadcast booth was empty. Utterly, completely empty. The chair was pushed back from the console, the microphone was cold and silent, and a thick layer of dust covered every surface. But the red on-air light was glowing brightly, casting an eerie crimson spell over the small room. And in the center of the console, right next to the microphone, sat a small, old-fashioned tape recorder. Its reels were turning slowly, and from its tiny speaker came the voice of Daniel Cross. It wasn't a live broadcast at all. It was a recording. His final message, playing on a loop in an empty room. Marla approached the console slowly, her flashlight beam fixed on the turning reels of the tape recorder. Daniel's voice filled the small, dusty booth, clearer now that she was closer. "I found the door," his recorded voice said, laced with a terrifying awe. "It's not a story, it's real. They live down there in the dark, in the wet. They built this town to keep the door sealed, but the seal is breaking. The rain calls to them." Marla leaned in, listening intently. This wasn't one of his usual spooky stories for the radio. This sounded like a confession, a warning. It was the message he was trying to deliver the night he vanished. The tape continued, Daniel's voice growing more frantic. "They hear everything. They hear the wires, the pipes, they hear the radio waves. That's how they speak, through the static, through the hum. I tried to tell everyone, but they thought it was just a show." A strange scraping sound echoed from the tape, the same sound from the original broadcast 5 years ago. Marla felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in the room. Was Daniel talking about something real? Something living in the network of tunnels and sewers beneath their feet? The idea was insane, but standing here in this haunted room, it felt terrifyingly possible. Suddenly, Daniel's voice on the tape was cut short by a loud gasp. "They're here," he whispered, his voice trembling with pure terror. "They're coming through the walls." Then came the sound. A wet, dragging noise, followed by a sickening crunch and a final choked scream. The tape ended. The reels stopped spinning. The only sound left was the pounding rain outside and the frantic beating of Marla's own heart. She stood frozen in the red glow of the on-air light, staring at the silent recorder. He hadn't just disappeared. Something had taken him. Something from below. And then, as if on cue, the on-air light flickered and died. The entire station was plunged into a profound, suffocating darkness. At the same exact moment, Marla looked out the window and saw the lights of the town wink out one by one until the entire city was swallowed by the night. A citywide power failure. A deep silence fell, broken only by the storm. Then, a new sound began. From her car radio and from every radio in every dark house across the city, a strange noise started to rise. It wasn't static. It was something else. A chorus of wet, scraping sounds and low, guttural whispers echoing in the blackness. What really happened to Daniel Cross? Maybe he never left at all. Maybe he just opened a door that could never be closed again.